Please note that we have everyone here except for Mrs. Pardue, who is out of town today and couldn't be here. So we've had some tragic news in the community here in the last couple of days. So I've asked Pastor Newberry to come up and open us with a prayer tonight, and then please remain standing for the pledge.
If I may, before we pray.
Please do.
As you pray for Scott and the kids, he got back in town about noon today. 3:30, went and made the arrangements at the funeral home. And so you can just imagine what is ahead for them. I would encourage you to go to their website, refugememphis.org, and you can sign up to get notifications of what's going on, and also the opportunity to give toward the funeral arrangements and all of that, okay? Well, let's pray. Father, there's not one of us that has not questioned and asked why. We grieve for our dear brother Scott and his kids. We are reminded, Father, that as the chief just reminded me, that life is but a vapor. And it reminds me, Father, for us to cherish each day as a gift from you and to love one another, with none of us knowing, Father, how many days we have. You told us, Father, that you were bringing to us a gift in the Holy Spirit to be our comforter. And so, Holy Spirit of God, we are asking that you would bring comfort and a peace that surpasses all understanding to the Benjamin family. Lord, over the days and weeks and, yes, years to come, may we as friends and family, as community, love and encourage this family. Pray for their precious church, the Refuge. And Lord, the good news in this is that because Jerry was a follower of Christ, when she took her last breath there in Orlando, your word tells us to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And so, Lord, in those short 49 years of hers, you chose to bring her home. And we thank you, Father, that you say that precious in the sight of the Lord are the homegoing of the saints. And so she is face to face with you. We are the ones that grieve. And so, Lord, bless. Use this tragedy in our community to bring us together. And Lord, even now, there's business ahead. And so I pray for tonight. I thank you for our mayor, for these aldermen, for the school board, for the town officials, God, for these residents. Lord, that tonight would be a night that is a night that all goes in order. And we thank you. And we thank you for being with us tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And thank you again for that prayer. That's why I asked you here, because, I mean, there's just no words can put into anything, but we pray for the Benjamin family. Next up, you'll have approval of the minutes from the January 2nd, 2018 meeting. Motion by Mr. McKee. Second by Mr. Brooks. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That item passes. We're going to get out of order here for just a second. We have a special recognition we're going to do. Sorry, Ms. Owens, it's not necessarily on the agenda, but for those who aren't aware, Mrs. Owens is our town recorder, and with that, you have to become, I don't know if you have to be, you need to become a certified municipal finance officer. With that is many hours of home study, many hours of going to classes or seminars across the state, and it's a time-consuming process on top of your normal job. And so since Mrs. Owens has been in this position, she's been working towards it. She just recently received her certification, and so we wanted to recognize her tonight for her accomplishments and look for big things for her as we grow as a town, and her knowledge as we move forward. So we'd like to recognize Ms. Brittany Owens. Getting her certificate that she already framed. But she's proud of it, and I don't blame her. But we want to make sure that she's recognized properly, and the town hall got her nice face as a certified municipal finance officer out of Arlington, December 2017. Congratulations. Everybody down there, everybody come on down?
Well, many hours of study going into this certification. And Brittany doesn't have the opportunity to do that at work. She can't come and sit behind the desk and do that at work. So this certification was done on nights and weekends, and her son, CJ, sitting at the table beside her, which was a life lesson for him to know that you never quit learning. And hopefully that's a lesson that we pass on to all of our children. But she had a rough year in studying for this and keeping up her duties here, and it's quite an accomplishment. So I appreciate what she's done in this position of employment, and she can take that with her wherever she goes. It's her accomplishment. Y'all move together.
Wait.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can all fit in front. You stand right there, we'll stand behind you. Who's gonna cut the cake? We wanted to do this now because we have cake, and we're gonna cut the cake. If anybody wants to get up during the meeting or right now and get some cake, feel free to. If we wait till the end, nobody will eat it. Everybody got pictures? Huh?
You go with Larry. I couldn't see Larry. I couldn't see Larry.
Okay, Larry.
We're all around here.
Sure, I'll see you. Thank you.
Congratulations. Who's cut the cake? Anybody back there? Seriously, everybody feel free.
Take a moment.
Take a moment, go get you a piece of cake. We have someone to drink back there too.
Yes, in the fridge.
Drinks in the fridge, feel free to get whatever you want. If you want to get up during the meeting, it won't be disrupted during the first few minutes anyway.
Soft drinks.
Ignore the meeting. I'd like to point out that
Yeah. There's cake here. Lance, there's not,
Look at her, she's already cut it.
there's not anything on the agenda he would come for now. Is that right, Gerald?
I don't know if he smells it from 3 miles away or.
Okay. That's fine. All right, as everyone's kind of scurrying around, just keep on doing what you're doing, and we're going to move on to grievances and comments from citizens. This is an opportunity. We allow anyone to come forward and speak on any particular topic. Even if it's not on the agenda tonight, just know that it's not a Q&A, and sometimes your questions may not get answered, but we do our best to answer anything that we can during the meeting. We do ask for no personal attacks, and we will give you up to 3 minutes to talk about any particular topic. So is anyone here to speak on any particular topic? Can y'all hear me okay? Anyone? Going once, going twice? All right. On to communications from the mayor. Sheriff's Department members report.
Yes, sir. My name is Lieutenant Kathy Crowder. I'm here to give the report for the month of January of 2018. After reviewing the reports, I noticed we had 9 thefts from motor vehicles that happened in Arlington, and all 9 vehicles was left unlocked. Last year this time, we only had 3 vehicles that was left unlocked. So we have an increase of 6. What I did today was brought some information that can be posted on the website to give the citizens information on how to park smart and safety tips. So I will pass this information up.
Okay.
It's a front and back, so please post it. And I also gave information on the Sheriff's Office crime prevention. If you need help of the Sheriff's Office coming to your meetings, the neighborhood watch meetings, please call the number that's on the brochure, and we will send a representative there to help the neighborhoods learn some safety tips to help us bring these numbers down. Out of those thefts from motor vehicles, we had 3 what was unlocked with weapons. So we have 3 weapons that's out there in the hands of criminals. So we need to secure the vehicles. If you have any weapons, put them in a safe lock box that you can purchase for your vehicles. If you need some locks to go on them, contact the Sheriff's Office, and we have some that we can pass out to the citizens. The area, we had 3 reports that came in, was on Brooks River Drive, and it happened Sunday, January the 14th of 2018. We had different time frames. We had 1 report that came in at 3 p.m., the second report came in at 9:30 p.m., and the last report came in at 11 p.m. So we have somebody out there at different time frames just going around checking the door. If it's unlocked, they're going to go in them, they're going to ram them, find anything just of value to them. We had another report that came in, burglary from non-residential. The only thing was taken was the air condition, and the suspect information is on file. So we do have a suspect information. We had theft from buildings. We had 3 that came in for the month, and out of those 3, we have 2 suspect information that's on file. Here at the Sheriff's Office, we're going to continue to make routine patrols through the neighborhoods, but we really need our citizens to help us bring those numbers down. That's a big, large number from last year. We only had 3, and this year we had 9 motor vehicle theft, and those vehicles was left unlocked and unattended. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Any questions for the Sheriff's Department? Seeing none, thank you. Next up, Chief Harville.
Good evening. This will be the monthly report for January 2018 for the Arlington Fire Department. We had a total of 107 responses. 48 of those were EMS responses. 59 were fire calls. We gave mutual aid 23 times. We received mutual aid 18 times. We had 32 calls either on or south of Interstate 40. We had 8 working grass fires in the month of January, 1 working structure fire, and we had a motor vehicle accident on Interstate 40 with actually a whole section of 40 had multiple accidents, but one of those had a DOA. There were 5 instances where Arlington was on a call and Shelby County responded inside the town limits. We conducted 20 inspections. We started and finished our hazmat in-service training for all of our personnel. We had 1 of our members attend the National Fire Academy for a 2-week program, which was the chemistry for emergency responders. We were successful in applying for, we haven't been awarded, still have our fingers crossed, for the Assistance to Firefighters grant. We were able to get the grant in for the Quint, which is roughly $1 million, and for the exhaust system for the fire station, which is around $46,000. So if those happen to come in, it's only a 5% match. We were unsuccessful in getting the training portion. There was a little confusion on the application, so hopefully we'll be successful in doing that next year. Three of us attended the annual 100 Club of Memphis dinner. We had submitted for a small micro grant from them back right after I came on, and we were awarded that grant. It was $1,550, and that's a 50% match for an ATV insert that we're going to put in our town ATV for the fire department. And as you know, we're in the process of replacing the siren that's on the hose tower at the fire station currently. We have the siren. If you've not seen it, it's at Public Works. It's a nice, large siren that's going to be good and loud for the community to hear while they're outdoors. The pole for that has been special ordered. It'll be placed in the back of the MLG&W pumping station. It'll be taken off of the hose tower. The personnel were able to deliver several letters to the communities and businesses adjacent to the fire department, just reminding them that that's going to take place. We're hoping to have it done by the end of the month, but it just depends on the delivery of that pole. That concludes our report.
Any questions for Chief Harville?
I'm just curious, do we know when we'll get the answers on the grant request? You know, how long that process?
That's a good question, Alderman Biggs. Normally it comes in early spring, so we should know something around April, no later than May. And they'll come out, it'll be different rounds. They'll notify those agencies in round 1, round 2, round 3. I've seen it go up to as high as 7 rounds before they'll notify. So I'm thinking mid to late spring would be our goal. Good question.
Does that answer your question, Mr.?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Biggs? Any other questions for Chief? Thank you very much, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Next up, special census update. Mrs. Owens. So that's been a tough item of discussion, the special census. Is it because both microphones are on?
Okay, sorry. We have posted again on our Facebook page and our website about the special census. Right now, as of today, we're at about 59% that's responded. We do have a deadline by March 1st, so we're just encouraging all residents to get in their forms. We've reached out to every avenue we can think of, so if you guys will just talk it up to your neighbors and your friends, and if you're at the senior center or the library or just at Kroger, just if you see someone that lives in Arlington, make sure they've turned in their forms for us.
Any questions on the special census?
Did you say y'all done another mail out?
We've done our second mail out, yes, sir, and our
The
next,
ones that didn't,
yes, sir, and then our next step is to start calling them.
and what is the percentage we need before we, if we don't reach a certain percentage, is it at 95 or what is it that we need? Because
After February 15th, we're going to have to start calling homes. You can have, when you're talking this up in the community, you can tell people that they can call us and give us the information over the phone. So if it's an inconvenience to go to the post office, drop it off, fax it to us, or email it to us, they can pick up the phone, call us. We'll be glad to take the information over the phone. So we use whatever avenue is available to us, property tax records, utility billing records. We find a phone number, we start calling people. That means that we have to write up, last count was 1,900 households that still not returned their form. So we're going to write up 1,900 forms with the addresses on it, find a phone number, then start calling. That'll mean nights, weekends. The fire department has graciously volunteered to help with some of those nighttime phone calls. But we very seldom go knocking door to door, but it was suggested today that we may have to do that with such a low turnout. Typically, after your first mailing, you're at about 75%. After your second mailing, you're at about 85%. After we make a few phone calls, you're at about 98%. And it just seems a little slow going this time. There's about 25 signs posted around town reminding people, but everybody lives a very busy life. So if you are talking to someone and they haven't done that, just urge them to pick up the phone and give us a call. Thank you.
Do you have something, Oscar? Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, we will For anybody that's here, you will see us continually try to blast that information out because we need that information. So please call your friends, neighbors, church, school, whatever. Just please help out. Next up, committee appointments. The only committee we have this month that we have to make appointments on is the IDB. And we have had some turnover on the IDB.
And one vacant position.
And it's a committee that doesn't meet that often. It depends on industrial development, basically. I know we have longtime member Gene Henders here, sitting over there hiding out.
You still in?
Gene's still on there. Gene and Rick Phillips are still on there. So I know that their senior leadership on that is much appreciated. And but we have a couple, as back this last fall when we tried to put all the committees out to see who was interested, we had quite a few applications for different committees, and it's hard to put everybody on the one committee or two committees, but we still asked if people were interested in other ones. And staff contacted these gentlemen and asked if they'd still be interested. And so we have Jason Wallace, Russell Calamay, and Christopher Moore. I don't know if I know Mr. Moore is here. Mr. Moore, raise your hand. Is Russell or Jason here? I don't see them here. But we appreciate them willing to step up and serve. This term will expire January 2022. And as usual, we encourage anybody that's wanting to serve in some capacity to get with staff, and we try to keep their information on file. And as appointments open up, we try to get everybody involved if we can. So it says, do we need to vote on this, or is this just without objection, or is this?
We need a motion from the board, IDB.
On the IDB needs a motion? Okay.
Dictate.
So, do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Brooks. Second by Mr. Harmon and Mr. Biggs, whichever one. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes. Thank you all. Next up, just under a couple of comments from me. Well, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. McKee real fast.
So, Phil Newberry just sent me a text, and he forgot to mention that the visitation for Jerry Benjamin will be Friday evening at Memorial Funeral Home across from Faith Baptist, and then the funeral itself will be Saturday, they believe at 11 o'clock at Bellevue at the Appling campus in the auditorium. So, thank you, Phil. I thought you'd left. Sorry.
Thank you. 11, he thinks 11 o'clock. Oh, the viewing?
Visitation.
5 to 7, they think. We'll try to get the information. Brittany was asking that before the meeting. We'll try to get the information. I know Ms. Mason and them back there are still waiting for official details, and we'll post everything we'll post something on Facebook, and I'm sure they will too. So we'll communicate it. But thank you. Just a few things from me. Next week, we do have the chamber lunch on Wednesday the 13th.
14th.
Oh, that's right, 14th, sorry. I was trying to get out of Valentine's Day, I guess. I guess I'm the key speaker, so I better get the date right, Tanya? So that's, there you go. Well, it's a good excuse for me to get out of Valentine's lunch with my wife, I guess, so. She's out of town right now, so I can say that.
I didn't hear what you said. Say that one more time.
No, it's recorded all the
Yeah,
time
it's
now.
up there. I'm sure it'll surface somewhere, I'm sure. No, but the special census and has been acknowledged. I know there was an announcement, it's not really on the agenda, but Ms. Williams or Ms. Mason, I know there's a new academy at the school that the board may not be aware of. I just saw the flash up the other day. Is there anything you'd like to say real fast on that, or?
Yes, we've unveiled, we'll be starting PAVE Academy next school year. That's a Fine Arts Academy for our kids. We're really excited about that. We've got information on our website for that new academy. And for those kids that have interest in the arts, not only while they're in high school, but when they leave high school as well. And so take a minute to go to our website and look at that. I do want to also let you know that within the next week, we'll be unveiling the second academy that we're going to start next year. So we're excited about that too. I don't want to
Yeah.
let the cat out of the bag yet.
Great. Yeah, I heard there's good things coming, but I don't know what they are, so that's great. Thank you. I also want to thank, I know we have a couple of APTA members here. I know you didn't know I was going to do this either, but I want to thank you all for your work. I know staff helped work, and some different branches of the town, tried to help gather some stuff. But there's an Arlington historic display down at the Shelby County Building that was unveiled a little over a week ago. I know a lot of work went into it over the last couple months, trying to gather some information and some memorabilia to display down there. And so if you're downtown around, is it 160 North Main in the Shelby County Building, and you can swing in there. It has about 3 glass enclosed cases of some history of Arlington. We couldn't get it all in there. There wasn't enough room. I'm sorry, Chief. I understand some of the fire stuff didn't get in there, but we appreciate Mayor Luttrell and Shelby County letting different communities come down and kind of showcase where they've been and where we're going. So we appreciate that. And so I appreciate all your efforts back there. And we do have Arlington in April coming up, speaking of the APTA, and a little different this year. APTA is kind of taking the reins on that. So you'll see the same event, but you'll see a little different, probably the same people working out there that's always worked out there too, but it looks like it may be able to take a little bit of the burden off the town and help the APTA at the same time. So we appreciate them taking on that and whatever else that they want. They keep volunteering to take over, so.
We will take on volunteers.
Yes, we'll always.
Names down, I'm glad everybody's here tonight.
Last thing I have is, I also want to thank Ms. Howell. She put together an economic development meeting for the board, the planning commission, the IDB, who am I missing? I think that was BZA, some school staff was there too. We had that last week at the school administration building, and it gave us a chance to kind of hear from a commercial real estate person kind of what the word is out on the street about Arlington, kind of where we've been, whether it's vacant land or commercial development or housing, whatever. So, and I think it was informative for a lot of people, so we appreciate you, Tanya, for putting that on. That's all I have. Does anybody have anything else? Any announcements they'd like to make? All right. Seeing none, we're going to get into committee reports. Any committees that would like to make an announcement? Oh, wait, we're not there yet.
We get to this one.
Any committee reports? Seeing none. Treasurer's report.
All right. For the month of February, in the general fund, we had a beginning balance of $1,137,475.25, an ending balance of $2,374,503.73. In our sewer fund, we had a beginning balance of $1,851,702.50 and an ending balance of $2,034,323.70.
Any questions on the treasurer's report? Okay, on to old business. Any old business, Mrs. Owens? Next to new business. Item A, first reading of ordinance 2018-01 to further amend the Town of Arlington, Tennessee budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018. Mrs. Owens.
This is the second set of budget amendments for the fiscal year of 2018. It is a standard cleanup of line items. You will see some donations that have came in over the since July over the fiscal year that are being amended into the expense side of it. In parks, it is the batting cages and the scoreboards, but staff recommends approval, and we will answer any questions.
You've heard the recommendation by Ms. Owens. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. McKee, second by Mr. McKee. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? That item passes. Next up, item B, resolution 2018-05 to approve a master development plan for the Hayesville Arlington Commons PD, a 1.29 acre mixed commercial residential project located on the eastern end of Mott Street. Mrs. Reeder.
Thank you. As mentioned in the name, this item is a master development plan that's being put forward for consideration tonight. The project in front of you is a mixed-use plan development. It's on a property in our downtown area, approximately 1.29 acres. It's on the east end of Mott Street. This site is zoned B3, which is our downtown business It's also within our Depot Square overlay district. It was most recently used as the town's community garden. So Depot Square, Senior Center, and then here's a site adjacent to the TDOT site there. As this is definitely under 50 acres in size, they're allowed to start this process with a master development plan. The project that's proposed includes roughly 25,000 square feet of mixed-use space. That space, as well as the associated parking and the site improvements. The applicant notes that it will be a mix of office and retail on the ground floor with 10 single-family residential units above. The uses that are allowed on the ground floor would mirror those that are permitted in the B3 zone. There's no exceptions requested for the uses. With regard to the upstairs residential units, those are also permitted above retail and office in our B3 downtown zone. And the Depot Square Master Plan actually encourages residential above retail. It helps establish activity throughout the day by having the residential there. And this site is actually identified as a preferred location for that. Any proposal with over 5 units in the code is required to get the plan development, which is why this application is in front of you. The residential uses are also called out to meet certain requirements, if you remember, regarding size, access, trash management, parking, and the like. The plan development document that was submitted does note that the residential units will exceed the minimum size, will have the reserved parking spaces required, designated trash collection, and access points to their homes that are separate from the commercial uses. They're actually proposing 2 stairwells. There's one on the front here, another on the back here, as well as an elevator, which is in this back area with the mailroom for the residents. Otherwise, you have retail that fronts on the north and south and west side. This side, which is fronting the TDOT lot, will only have the access for the residential over there. As I mentioned, they are following the residential zoning. There are no exceptions requested for use or bulk regulations. Design standards are set forth in the plan development. They note that this is intended to complement what's existing in Depot Square, as well as build on what our Depot Square master plan intent is. The PD obligates the project to several features throughout, including some green infrastructure, bike racks, outdoor patios, a rooftop garden, and native plantings throughout in their landscaping. Because it'll be visible on 3 sides, the PD calls for historic architecture and design, and there's some examples of that. You can see here, there are 9 different facades along the 3 frontages. It's intended to mimic 9 different buildings. There are 4 different brick colors that will be used throughout, and those are called out in the PD. And then there's also requirements for details, such as the metal canopies, the balconies, which you can see the balcony down here, and the canopies, which vary depending on the frontage you're on. And then lighting as well. The colors that are identified are intended to mimic the existing buildings there in Depot Square, and they've picked a variety to truly make it look like different facades, but still be complementary of one another. Lastly, I would note that the PD does place restrictions on the balconies, the second floor balconies and patios, to ensure that they're used as planting areas and for seating only. They will be large enough to allow for seating, for a table, a couple chairs, but they're not used for any outdoor storage or grills in order to maintain the appearance. And there is a condition that notes that in here as well. It does not restrict the use of potential outdoor grills on the rooftop patio, as that's the common area for them, if it's permitted per fire code, just on those patios that are visible from surrounding properties. As far as landscaping, the B3 zone, or Depot Square area, doesn't have a specific percentage of open space that's required. However, this site is meeting what we would normally look for in a commercial by providing 23%. It's primarily around the perimeter, but you do have a 10-foot buffer between the parking lot sidewalk and the front of all of those buildings. You've also, as I mentioned, you have a rooftop patio area here, which does include some planting, is intended to be used as a common area, which is something that you often lose in mixed-use developments like this, so they've added that in. The Design Review Committee will review the final landscaping and open space plans with additional details. They are subject to all underlying B3 zoning regulations, and no exceptions are required. As far as access points, you have two to the development. You have the existing Mott Street access. So this is the way we were previously accessing the site when it was a community garden. But they're also proposing a second driveway here, which was a driveway that will be shared through an access easement that will share with the properties here, as well as the proposed project running right along the north side of the driveway. They are required to obtain an access easement from that property owner for that driveway. However, it will provide vehicular and pedestrian access to the new project out there and connect it to the rest of Depot Square. I'm going to turn it over briefly to the engineer, or as long as you want.
All right, there will be roadway improvements required with this project. As you can see here, there will be some minor improvements along Chester Street, which will include curb, gutter, and sidewalk. There will not be any right-of-way dedication required for Chester Street. On Mott Street, the applicant is proposing to close the eastern 200 feet of Mott Street. That right-of-way will be abandoned and dedicated back to the adjacent property owners. Essentially, the north half of the right-of-way will go to the northern property owners. The south half would return back to this property owner. There will be some very minor improvements on Mott Street. As you can see here, the curb gutter will extend through the radius on Mott Street, and it will be widened slightly to allow a 24-foot paved surface. All right, drainage and grading. Excuse me. Initially, when this applicant came forward, he was requesting a detention waiver. As we dug a little further into the drainage analysis of this basin, we found out that it is at the lower end of 45 acre drainage basin. Right now, the water is conveyed through an unimproved ditch along the east property line, just to the west of the TDOT site, and it goes through an existing box culvert under Highway 70. That existing box culvert under 70 is a 4-foot wide by 2-foot tall box culvert that is extremely undersized. It is only capable of carrying what we've determined to be a 2-year storm event. The town's requirement is a 25-year event, just to give you some comparison. Because of the undersized box culvert at Highway 70, any increase in the peak flow within this basin would contribute to the existing flooding within this basin down here on the lower end. Since the Planning Commission meeting, staff has met with the applicant's consultant, and we have developed an option that we feel that would benefit both the community and the site here that's being proposed. As you may be aware, here we go. Right now, the town is looking at developing the forestry campus just on the upstream side of this development. The town is being required to meet the same drainage requirements as the applicant is. And what that would be is that they have to detain to limit the peak discharge to pre-development conditions for every storm event. So what we have determined is that the town can size their detention basin and increase it from what they were proposing originally to offset the increase in runoff that the Hayesville-Arlington site would cause. This approach will help align with the town's goal to install more regional detention basins. The applicant will also be required to pay for their portion of this increase in the detention basin. It's not going to be a public improvement, but the last improvement here is the sanitary sewer. Sanitary sewer is available to the site. The developer will be required to extend the sewer, which is up on the northeast end, to serve their building. It will be a private extension, but an extension will be required.
Okay. So when we're looking at a plan development, you want to look at what's surrounding the site and make sure that it's consistent and going to fit into the area. Looking at what's around this site, it truly is a mix of uses. I kind of laughed when I started seeing it. You have single-family houses, you have commercial with Dollar General and Off the Hoof, Grapevine here. You have office uses that are in the buildings here, institutional with the senior center and the lodge. You have industrial uses with that 10-acre TDOT site right next door. So there truly is a mix all around this. So staff felt like this proposal would be consistent with the uses around it, but most importantly, it's consistent with what our vision is for our Depot Square area and what we've outlined in our future land use plan, in our zoning map, and in our master plan for that area. We're always charged with looking at the objectives for what a plan development is intended to do, and it's intended to benefit the town residents and also the developer through variations that might be an opportunity through the plan development. This is a list of what we're intended to look at: architectural innovation and design, preserving character, efficient use of land, alternatives to private travel, small businesses to serve our neighborhood. Reading through all these, staff felt like that this proposal would accomplish several of them. It does meet the regulations set forth. It provides some exceptional architecture and design for our historic area of downtown. It does provide some added location for small businesses also to allow some more infusion of those into our downtown historic center and to help rejuvenate this area. So we did feel it was consistent. The next step for this, if it's approved, would be to receive a plat which would correct, add the easements and do the roadway abandonment that was discussed, and have construction plans and common open space plans reviewed by the town. The Planning Commission did consider this item at a hearing in December. It was a public hearing, and they did recommend approval with the conditions attached. I would note that staff did add two minor conditions since then. One regarding marking the parking spaces for the residences to be sure they are reserved and maintained for those, and another regarding that I mentioned as far as the balconies, making sure that is in language for the site but does not restrict the use of the rooftop garden area. So staff is recommending approval of the project as it's proposed, subject to those conditions in front of you and any other you feel may need to be levied, and the applicant is also here to answer any questions.
You've heard the recommendation by Mrs. Reeder. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion by Mr. McKee. Second by Mr. Biggs. Pardon? Yeah. So before we get into the actual discussion, we have a public hearing on this particular topic. So I need a motion to suspend the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting and open a public hearing.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Harmon.
Second.
Second by Mr. Biggs. So we are now on the public motion to suspend. We are on a public hearing for Resolution 2018-05 to approve a master development plan for the Hayesville-Arlington Commons PD, a 1.29-acre mixed commercial residential project located on the eastern side of Mott Street. Notice of this hearing was published in the Commercial Appeal on January 20th, 2018. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this request, please stand and be recognized. State your name and address for the record. Is anyone here to speak on this particular topic? Seeing none, do I have a motion to close and resume the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting? Motion by Mr. McKee. Second. All right. We are back on the main motion. So we do have Mr. Lefford here who is representing the applicant. So any questions for staff or the applicant are open. So does anyone have anything right now at this time? I know there's some questions. I'm just.
Oh, wait, go ahead.
Go ahead, Oscar.
The only questions I got are for the runoff. Could you explain that in a little more depth, how you're gonna maintain the runoff and keep it from overdoing the current pipe?
The,
You gonna backflow it into ours, is that what you're getting at?
no, sir, it's not going to backflow. So the campus site is essentially going to over-detain.
Yep.
They're going to detain more than what they have to. For whatever cubic feet per second of water that the site will generate above what it is today, the town's going to accommodate that on their campus in their detention basin.
I got you.
This site is discharged into that pipe before your water ever gets there.
We'll reduce the way ours is gonna flow into it, to compensate for it. Gotcha.
Is that all you have?
No, I'll make a comment. I do like the idea of the mixed facades. I think that's a great concept. It'll keep it from looking like a box building. I like the idea of mixing it up. The rooftop patio, great idea. I think residential above commercial and retail will work. I see it work in other small communities, and I don't see why it won't work here.
Kevin Ledford, Ledford Engineering, Planning and Architecture, 5567 Commander Drive. Just a quick overview of this site, and then I'll do my best to answer any of your questions. This particular site is just one of a multiple phase with H Saga and Port Alliance. They also have the property that's just north of here and adjacent to the Dollar General, which we will, in that phase, make a connection to Highway 70 as well onto this property. And then over to, on the west side of this property, on the west side of their existing building, they have acreage there. So this building really is what we hope to set the tone of that overall multi-phase development in there. And the client has been more than willing to work with us to establish a pretty architecturally consistent with what the old town of Arlington would look like. So, yeah, and we're very proud of it, too. It's a nice-looking building.
It looks nice from the renderings I've seen.
Yeah.
I do have a question when you're talking about the connectivity or the flowing of it. Can you go back to that one right there, the Stubb Street, right there on the left when you come in, on the north side?
On the north side up here?
Is that a
Yes,
Stubb
sir.
Street right there?
That is. That's
Now,
the
is
one
that
that will-
right there by Dollar General, the back of their parking lot?
Yes, sir, it is, and there already exists an easement across that property right there, so once we get in our next phase, we'll make that connection, and that's what will connect over to Highway 70 for this property as well. And I might mention too, Mott Street, this drawing isn't the latest and greatest. We're actually improving and giving 24 feet of Mott Street over to about right here. So it's really narrow there, and we're talking with the fire chief. We agreed to widen it to 24 feet so that his emergency vehicles can get in there and make that movement around without any.
The entire length of Mott Street?
No, just
the
to there.
entrance,
That
just the
stops
entrance.
short.
Okay.
There's a residential home right there, and it stops right there at that residential home.
Mr. Baker's over home, yeah.
Now, the stuff to the
Parker.
north is not a street, that's an access easement.
Right.
Same thing with what's running parallel to railroad tracks, that's not a street.
Yeah, that's a private
Private
easement.
drive,
Right,
okay.
private
That's
drive.
access to the parking lot that's existing there to the Dollar General.
Excuse me?
It gives access to the parking lot
Yeah.
that's currently next to Dollar General. Does that understand?
Yeah, and that easement is maintained, but it is a public easement, but it's maintained by the owners of the property.
Okay.
And it transfers with any transfer of the property as well.
Next up for questions, Mr.
Okay,
McKee.
on mine, it shows the railroad tracks and everything.
Yes,
Is
sir.
it just lower, or is it not showing on there?
The railroad tracks down here on the bottom left-hand corner, yeah, that's basically where the gray area starts. That is the railroad track right there.
You know, this area worries me a little bit. If a truck's coming in to make a right-hand turn, what can we do? Can we make sure that that truck gets out of the way and not back up cars at that railroad track? If it goes into this property to deliver something, it's a short period, it's a short space right there.
It is.
I mean, we can put some signage. That could definitely be something we'd look at to restrict right turn. The only other option at this point, if we do that, would be the truck making a turn on the Mott Street, which is not a designated truck route. And it's Mr. Ledford mentioned, it's a very narrow road. But that's definitely something when construction plans are presented, we will look further into and see if we can sign
As
it.
far
I
as,
think we need to be very sensitive to that intersection, even though it's a, and plus, when it goes over into the Woolly area, I mean, is there going to be a drive to go into there off of this, to go into either one
yeah,
of these
there will
three
be,
lots?
there will be, actually, in the future, if this is developed, one of the agreements with the town is the town move forward. This drive off of Chester will go away.
Okay.
It will be moved over, for the grapevine, it'll be moved over in this area, so they will come in here and tear it down.
That was my question there. It needs to be thought very careful on that too, because if you're taking a right and you back up, yeah.
Right.
The good thing is that, that crossing, the railroad track is signaled and has a crossing arm. So a crossing arm's gonna come down and hit you if you park on top of that track and track it.
Well, I don't think we're going to intentionally be parking on it, but if it
Yeah.
gets backed up to it, that's why I want you to be
understand your
sensitive.
concern there, I really do. And the one thing that gives me a little bit of, I guess, comfort with that is when you talk about that truck traffic, since
It's not
most of
supposed
your
to
truck
be.
traffic is going to be coming off of Highway 70, in the future, we make that connection, it'll be a lot easier, but it would be coming in, traveling south on Chester Street, making a left turn would be the predominant movement there. So that gives me a little bit more comfort. And like Mr. Durant said, you do have a signalized crossing there, so there's safety precautions that are already there for traffic across there. So, but as we move forward, we definitely will work with Ms. Woolley to make sure that her drive is placed such that they have adequate movement in there as well.
We're talking about delivery trucks going into the site. Are we talking about just your slightly larger delivery trucks? And
Yeah,
not
there will be
18-wheelers?
18-wheelers, no.
Okay.
It's just like Bob truck type
Bob
deliveries
truck, okay.
for office stuff and things like that.
Okay.
Well, if there's a restaurant goes in there, then it could be.
It could be,
Yeah, because we have it already down at Depot Square, because I see it going into where Wilson's and whatever,
yeah,
so it could.
it could be a little bit larger truck. The good thing about it is you do have that circular movement there, so they will be able to pull in off of
As
Mott
long as we
Street.
look at that and engineer it so that it's, won't be a safety issue, then I'm okay with it.
Mr. Harmon, were you still asking a question, or?
No,
Okay.
that's good. I just, if it is 18-wheelers, if we need to, through engineering, figure out how to route them specifically off of Highway 70.
Well, right now, if I'm not mistaken, we've got signs coming in from Fayette County that want no truck traffic coming in off of Milton Wilson toward Depot Square. So the only way they would get there is if they tried to maneuver through Milton Wilson, Chester, all that area to come down that way, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know that most 18-wheeler drivers want to try to maneuver those.
Delivery
streets
guys
very
usually are pretty good. They figure out their least path of resistance. So,
I
but we
think the
will
railroad
definitely,
property is 50 foot from the middle anyway, right? Middle of
Pardon?
I think the railroad property is 50 foot off there anyway.
yes, sir, it is. It is.
Okay.
Mr. McKee?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Go ahead.
One, the box culvert improvements or the box culvert issue. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, and is there a need for immediate improvements? What's the process there?
I wouldn't say there's a need for immediate improvements. To say it needs improving, I would say it does. Similar to what was done when Highway 70 was widened in front of the existing Kroger site. When this section of Highway 70 is improved, that box culvert would be upsized at that time. I mean, to go in and improve it now would be costly. We have not put an estimate to that to give an exact number, but it would be several hundreds of thousands of dollars if I had to throw a ballpark number out there to upsize it. Because it would require shutting down 70, diverting traffic, things of that nature.
We are in conversations with TDOT on several intersections on Highway 70 that we're asking for improvements on. And we can certainly throw that box culvert conversation in the mix. That is their highway, is their right of way, is their box culvert. In the past, the town of Arlington has taken the lead and the expense in replacing those boxes. Up to this time, we're having conversations with TDOT, ask them to put some money into that and acknowledge that that undersized
you were mentioning that that property will essentially maintain more water than is needed or is required, if I understand it correctly, so it releases it slower off the property. Did I hear that correctly? Or
On the Forest Street campus, that detention basin will be made larger to accommodate the increase in runoff produced by this site.
is this property doing anything different to slow the flow off of it until that is changed with that detention pond or the box culvert? Or we had conversations on when that detention pond may be done. And so that would be my only concern about it. I love the project. I'm just curious about in the meantime.
First step, you've got to come back with your site plan, construction plans to move forward, and we're very closely, ready to put our site out for bids for
Okay.
construction. So it's our hopes to have, the first thing that you're going to do on your forestry campus site is to bring in the drainage.
Yep.
And the creation of that detention basin, because you're going to need the soil. So hopefully the two projects happen simultaneously.
Okay.
I think that detention basin, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, that also will serve as basically a stormwater bank for other properties that still remain in this basin that may want to develop also.
Regional.
It's kind of a regional pond, which is a good thing anyway, versus having these little bitty ponds everywhere. It's a regional approach to stormwater management, which is a good thing.
Okay.
And you did say they were gonna compensate some for the increase. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this Williams property won't be made to reserve for stormwater detention.
And actually, we are in this phase stubbing out drainage for the Woolley property so that when they develop, they will be able to take their stormwater runoff into this system and move it on over to the ditch as well.
And
It's been a good thing because it kind of took the overall basin into consideration as being developed and providing stuff on the front end for that versus trying to do a piecemeal as we go along.
which we've been guilty of in the past. And I'm assuming that the other landowners, specifically Mr. and Ms. Woolley, are in agreement with this drive,
Yes.
shared drive location here that goes into
That's
their
my
property.
understanding, yes.
Okay. And then mentioned deeding, essentially shutting down Mott Street once past the residents that currently own the residence, I'm assuming, and deeding that over half the road to one side and half the road to the other.
That's correct.
Not at the residence, but just past the last business, so.
That red line.
It's all
Yeah.
back here.
If that red line, if you just continue it north, that's where the right-of-way would stop.
Okay.
So each parcel will still touch right away and have access to public right.
And explain the red dotted line, because I've seen some different property names, but they're just north of it I believe there was H Saga as part of it, and then there's Arlington Heights. But I'm trying to figure out what the red line is and the parking lot
Well,
is.
the red line is the current property line. And that's where it would be your southern boundary of what Mott Street right-of-way now exists. And when this project goes forward, that's the property line on the north side. On the west side, there is the property line. That's where H Saga exists now. What happens is if this is approved, we will bring deed instruments for the town to record and to revert that property, the center line, back to each adjoining property owner, which ends up being H Saga Port Alliance and Mr. Schuette's property with the Dollar General, which we're going to basically pay him for his portion and take that all in, make ours one track there, kind of have you see it, and then have an egress across it.
Right, it's parking right there on that side.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. And then, you know, again, from that west line, that west red line going west now, that's still Mott Street, 50-foot right-of-way.
And then my last question, which is more of an aesthetic, you discussed that in this project, there would be the the balconies would have enough space for patio furniture out there?
Well, like cafe seating, like a small cafe coffee table and a chair here and a chair, that's it.
Would,
It's not gonna have a big bench, you basically have got 3.5 foot.
would the developer be interested in essentially coming up with something that is consistent for every patio, essentially so that every one of them have the same patio furniture instead of having 9 different patio sets out there, so that as people drive by, you don't get white sets and green sets and blue sets and all
Well,
that? It would be.
I honestly, I don't think we can do that because you are renting your apartment. And
If it's permanent, you can.
But we don't want to end up buying furniture every year for our renters. So, the patios are going to be there for, just like if one of us moved in and we had our little chair and table that we want to put out on the patio to have coffee there in the mornings, that's up to us. If we just want to have potted plants, that's up to us. It's a limited use space, and we really, it would put as far as an operational standpoint, to try and have furniture there that's on that patio that we select for the tenant is really not, I don't think we want to go in that direction.
That's not what Stacy T. done. The side that the residence patio is on the Stacy T. dot is on.
No.
No.
We face the square, we face Highway 70, and then
Yeah.
we face to the west.
Oh, it can be conditioned if you wanted it to be.
It's not much
If you
different
leave
than
it up to the
supplying
renters, it's gonna be all over the
appliances.
Mr.
No
Lawson?
different than appliances.
I was going to ask Mr. Lawson, because I know we've had this discussion before with developers on stuff that they put in their homes. We can do sometimes the outside, but not the inside. I don't know if this falls in that category.
Yeah, we have had a discussion in the past about how interior finishes are finished out, and that's a problem. I think you could probably condition, since this is single deck, you could probably condition if you didn't want to see furniture out there, like I said, no furniture out there. It probably could require maybe consistent furniture. I see the development point, it's an additional cost, but it could be provided, same as any other appliance or anything.
Or could it be conditioned that no plastic furniture or just metal furniture? I mean, I don't know. I'm asking on his, piggybacking off his question.
You can make a condition. I think it's the same on that exterior, you can put a condition, or let's say, you can condition that you don't want to see flags out there. If the developer would purchase it and provide it as an amenity with the apartment,
It's like a
it would be consistent.
stove, refrigerator, washer, dryer, whatever you did. It's no different.
But you can't.
I'm just throwing it out there. I'd like to hear what other people's thoughts are on
I
it.
actually like what you're saying.
I like Jeff's idea.
It does sound.
I mean, you can always have them put down a deposit for whatever. But anyways, that was the only thing I thought, when I crossed my mind on that is, I love the look of it. I love everything about it. I love the fact that it's got residents above it. I mean, this is a project that when we approved this change in Depot Square, this is what we were thinking about.
Just wants a uniform look up
I
there.
just would like to make sure we've got some type of uniformity when renters come in. And I know these are not gonna be cheap, so I know that the people are gonna mostly take pride in it, but,
Sorry, Scott Bell, 6446 Anglia Valley Drive. The preliminary pictures, renderings do not have balconies on all 10. So it's really on 3 or 4 of them. So when you're thinking about this, I wouldn't think that every one of them is going to have a balcony. So to your point, though, at this point, I don't want to say anything without Bob being here. He's on his way over to Taipei, but I'm not prepared to answer that question. But to your point, we want what the town wants. We don't want anything out there that's not commensurate with what Arlington wants. So,
Well, Scott, what would you want then, since you said that?
what would I want?
Yeah, if you were standing over by the barber shop and looking at them, what would you want to see, or what would you not want to see?
Well, like I said, Harry, I'm not really prepared to talk about that right now. Not having, been proposed that question, but again, something commensurate to luxury condos. We're not looking for anything that is less than what Arlington, again, desires and wants.
But don't we have some proposed conditions on this already that we could let staff still work with the?
Yeah, and I would just say, I mean, they did, and this was something that the applicant brought forward, is the restriction on the use of that, and they've already restricted it to just some seating, temporary seating and plantings only. So they've made sure people decide, don't put their grill out there, or their, laundry drying rack out on there, anything like that to try to maintain it. And I don't know, he is correct. There's only a couple small balconies. Not each unit actually does have one. I don't think it's bad to have some variety. You want it to look like people are living there. You don't want to, but again, I understand the desire. I mean, and I don't think with the rents, I'm going to guess these are going to be charging, that people are going to put their plastic white furniture out there on the patio. I would think we can work with the applicant to put some sort of quality standard or color
Yeah.
limitations.
Yeah, instead of us specifying instead of us